Hey everyone, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. Thanks for checking out the video, no matter how you ended up here, current subscriber, or found the link, or searched for something somewhere and found your way here. Welcome. I haven't had a video out for a couple months now, actually. I haven't fallen off the face of the earth. If people that communicate with me on the channel with comments and stuff like that, or email me or submit my custom movement holder forms or my website request form, that stuff, I had to take a little bit of a break and concentrate on some work and life stuff, my actual job. Remember, for everyone watching this, whether it's first time or old time, this is kind of the side thing that I do, both the channel and the watchmaking. I have an actual other job. I just needed to shut off some stuff for a while and concentrate on certain things, and we all got to do that sometimes. This video, I want to highlight just a couple things. The majority of my custom watch work at this point, I've made plenty of custom watches. I still want to do my own projects and stuff and sell them at my own sort of leisure, if you want to call it that. But I want to focus, and have been focusing really, on my niche, which is making custom movement holders. You have this particular movement, you want to fit it into a particular case. I can 3D model and draft the holder or spacers or a combination of those things to fit that movement to a case and help people bring what watch they want to wear on their wrist to a point of reality. That's really what I enjoyed the most. I've said that in other videos, and I want to talk a little bit generally about that. I want to show a couple examples from this past year that I didn't make specific videos about, just to give a sense of the scale. From creating a custom ring, however, it was my first time experimenting with a metal fill 3D filament, so printing metal out of the 3D printer, and then sort of the other end of that, where somebody wanted to fit a modern quartz movement into a case that's meant to hold a mechanical movement. On top of that, I want to mention a few examples coming in 2024. Really interesting combinations, and a lot of the combinations ends up being very popular that a lot of people want to work with. For example, Ronda 515 movements in a variety of different cases, the Miyota 9015 case. I'll get into that a little bit when we flip the camera around. But there are some very common combinations. I've got a few more of those coming that I think people will find interesting. I want to also highlight my web page and web form, where if you want to see what combos I've done, worked on, the videos linked to those, or if you're a watchmaker, tinker, modder, and you want to contact me because you have a project in mind, or you want to order a kit combo, I'm going to highlight the web page for that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to flip the camera around, talk about all the details. I am wearing, wrist check, the Christopher Ward Moon Phase, their new C1 version of the Moon Phase. I have a video coming out soon, again early this year, that's going to talk about that versus the one that I bought, which was the very first Christopher Ward I had, which is the original C1 Moon Phase, which was a derivative of the original C9 Moon Phase, which was one of their first hits, really their biggest hit in their early days, which really launched the brand in a new trajectory. But we'll get into that. Right now, let's talk about movement holders. All right, here's another quick fun thing for this video. Why not? I got my first tourbillon watch. This was a Kickstarter. Of course, it's a low-end Chinese tourbillon, but it's got a meteorite dial. I shifted off my older meteorite dial watch that I had because I thought, this looked better to me if I'm going to have one meteorite dial in my collection. This is an interesting watch. I'm going to have a review on this again early in 24. And let you know my thoughts on it. It's interesting. I'm also going to show how to adjust the bracelet on that one. That's going to be a fun little challenge. Perhaps we'll see how it goes. Again, sorry for the lighting. It's dark outside, but hopefully this will work out. I just want to show a couple of the projects that I did this past year, again, to give that sense of scale. And the first one, there was someone who was doing a ladies Datejust Rolex 26mm build, and it has an ETA, or at the 2671-2, and they needed a particular spacer ring for it. And I'll throw up a picture of what that part looks like. And it's like, okay, maybe it's not available everywhere, maybe not in every location. And I got a request, hey, can you make me this custom ring that would go in this little watch, 26mm, small watch. And I said, sure. And they wanted metal as opposed to plastic. And so I looked at what metals my 3D printer, which is a Lulzbot Mini 2, what it could take. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's try copper. It looked like a pretty good solution. And you could polish it and shine it up, that kind of thing, if I want to try other things. This is what I use. This is my filament that's copper fill. It's one of the special ones offered by this brand ColorFab that works with my particular printer. It's interesting, you know, filament kind of looks like a powder that's just formed into a thread, essentially. You can see the granulation there. And then when it prints out, it's going to kind of still have that look to it. It's about 80% or so of the metal, and then the rest is PLA plastic, sort of like what bonds the thing together. Think of it as breadcrumbs and eggs, right? When you want to like make something crusty in the oven. Well, this is what we've got, is copper fill, and it actually worked pretty good, better than I expected. Let me flip this around. Pause. One note about using the metal filaments or other variations beyond just the standard PLA or plastic stuff. I have a micro extruder, which is what I use to print really thin, really small plastic rings. I couldn't use the micro extruder. I had to use the regular extruder in my 3D printer to print this metal fill. And that's an important distinction. By the way, the standard extruder on most 3D printers is around 0.5 millimeters. It gives you some variation up and down around that, but the micro extruder gets you down to 0.25, so I can get all the way down to 0.05 printing with a micro extruder, high detail, which lets me print stuff like this, which is extremely thin and extremely high detail. This is a movement side spacer for something I'll talk about in a second. So I got the specs, kind of got the adjustments that I needed, and so I start printing. You can see the layers there with 3D printing. Sometimes you'll get the bottom layer that looks a little bit different. And sorry for the weird lighting and the shadows. It's dark out, it's raining. Okay. All it was a simple ring, diameter, interior, exterior, and this gap where we needed to give enough room for the stem. That was it. But it was my first time playing around with the copper. And let me show a couple pictures. This filament you can use, you can shine it up. It's mostly copper, so it might turn a little bit green over time if it's exposed to natural elements. It's something you can, like with pinning, right? Look at this. I polished this one, so you can take some, light sandpaper, very, very light, fine grained sandpaper, and sand it up, and it gets a little bit of a shine to it, just like a penny or something else would. I didn't shine it the whole way around. This is just to illustrate the effect. Yeah, I can see the 3D printed layers, and then if you really spend some time working on it, look at that. Nice and smooth, feels nice, feels like copper. So that was one project I did this past year. The second project I did was this Seiko. So someone tells me they have a 7002, they want to put a 515 movement in it. Okay, great. I find one on eBay, low price, something's broken with it or something, but that gets me the case. That way I can get measurements. It's all about the interior of the case. So I basically chop it apart. There's the original dial. And then I have the 515 movement that was going to go into the watch. And there are different variations of 515. I talk about them on my website, which I'll plug here in a second. You can see the dial hands. That's all the original stuff. It's actually still attached to the movement. I'm not going to flip it over because that'd be kind of a bad thing to do. And let's build a custom holder for it. Okay, great. So I sketch it up, work it out. This one needed, it wasn't too much of a variation. The 7002 case versus the SKX 007, there are some variations in the way the holder had to be constructed. It has some differences from the most common request I get and the most purchased holder kit that I make, which is to fit a Ronda 515 variation of some sort into a Seiko SKX 007 case. But here's the 7002, and there's a little bit of a difference. You can see that towards the top we have to get a little bit thinner. Again, that's due to the internal dimensions of the particular case. We've got the nubs on top. The height is a little bit different. The 515 has these locations where you can help secure, so you see these little half cylinders sticking out. They fit in the movement itself just to help keep it in place as you twist and rotate things in the case with the case back when you're screwing it on, that sort of thing. It's not a huge difference from my most common holder, but it was a little bit different. Seiko's pretty standard across the board. You get some size differences with the case diameters and whatnot, but pretty easy to adjust from case to case. The two primary things to consider when you want to say, I want to put a movement in a case is, what's the height of the movement versus the height of the case. You want to fit this particular movement in this case, well, the movement has to sit at the correct height for wherever the stem location is in the case, and that means having enough elevation on either side so that you can have it nice and centered, no weird twisting of the stem up or down or in a particular position. So you've got to have that right. And a quartz movement, thin mechanical movements will fit almost in any case. You just got to have something that holds it in that case and then elevates it to the right location. And in this particular project, it's sort of, again, a fun example. I also have this option with the 515 GMT movement, is you can choose a dial side spacer or a movement side spacer. You just got to have hand posts that are tall enough or movement pins that are tall enough to accommodate either of these. And yeah, I know that's thin, but that makes a huge difference inside of a watch case. I think these are like 0.2, 0.3 millimeter thick. Like they're tiny. And you can either put this dial side, so this would sit under the chapter ring, and that actually looks pretty good. So you can see there's this green, at least in this example that I bought, there's this blue tealish green color, what's almost like seawater color, but that would sit underneath the chapter ring, gives a nice little contrast. You're not going to see much of it, but it would be just under that, right in front of the dial. Or if you don't want that look, there's a movement side spacer, and so this has a window for it, goes around the dial feet. You can see there's a little semicircle right there, and then over here as well, goes around the dial feet on the movement, and it's just made to go between the back of the dial and the movement, providing the same elevation needed so that everything fits nice and snug in the case once the case back is screwed down tight. Now, I explain a lot of this in further detail in my other videos, just staying a little bit general here. But those are two of the projects, the ladies Datejust 26mm with the copper ring, and then the Seiko 7002 and the holder plus either spacer option. A couple fun projects from this past year that I did. Now, if you want to have a custom print done, there's basically two paths. One is existing combinations I've done, and that is on my website. I have a table that shows here's the existing combinations I've done, this movement with this particular case. I give links, I give the videos that highlight and show those combinations, and there you're paying just the price per print and shipping and handling costs. The second path is if it's a combination I haven't done before, basically a movement in a case that I haven't built a holder or spacer kit for. If you go down that path, I've got cost information on the web page that I linked below and in the video. But a few more that I have in development for early 2024 is fitting an ETA 2824. That's also the Soletta 200 series in the SKX 007. That's a combination I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm finally going to get to it. Imagine a really high quality, decent quality Swiss mechanical movement in the SKX 007 case. I'm going to make that happen. I'm also going to try fitting an NH35 into cases that might be suited for a 6498. It's really a height thing. And here's another fun one. I've got a project where I'm going to be working on getting a kinetic movement, think of a Citizen movement or something like that, into an SKX 013 case. I think these are really interesting combinations. They're projects that I've taken on for people. I think there will be some buy-in around some of them, particularly like, say, the 2824 in the SKX 007 or an NH35 in some particular sort of a case. Those are just examples of combinations that are very broad. You can get parts, you can get cases, and you can make something that's kind of your own, or you want to start tinkering or working on your own stuff, maybe making something for someone. A lot of cool stuff, combinations coming here in 2024 with regard to what is my favorite little niche in custom watchmaking, and that is custom holders and spacers. When it comes to quartz and really thin mechanical movements, one of my most popular ones is the Miyota 9015. That is because it's a very thin mechanical movement, can go into a lot of cases. The Ronda 515 quartz series, probably the most common Swiss-made quartz because it's a low cost, high quality, works well, and it's so thin it can fit in so many different types of cases. Those are just examples. This is my favorite type of watch work, and I hope to share a lot more of it with you with specific projects and processes as we go forward in 2024. Let's check out. All right, if you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me through the video. I would say, remember, if you like what you saw, thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you want to stay in touch with what's going on here on the channel, and check out my website, Watch Complications. If you are a watch modder, tinkerer, maker, and you are interested in creating a custom project, design, you need a custom holder, spacer, stuff like that, contact me. Now you know how. Links are in the description below. Thank you so much for all my subscribers who are sticking with me through this, even with my gaps between videos. More coming in the new year. I'm gonna try to do a little bit more this year, I hope, in terms of video release schedule. We'll see how it goes. But thanks everyone, I'm out.